So you know that feeling, like the one where that list of things you should do is just kind of staring you down.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you've even got a plan, all mapped out, but actually starting. It
Yeah.
feels like hitting a brick wall.
Yeah. Or you start, but then something just pulls you away.
Exactly. Like squirrel,
Yeah.
you know? A notification pops up or just a random thought and boom, time's just gone, vanished.
It's like this weird disconnect, isn't it, between knowing what needs doing and, well, doing it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
That gap between the intention and the action.
It's actually incredibly common. And it often ties back to these mental skills. We call them executive functions.
Executive functions,
Yeah.
right? Like the brain's CEO. Or maybe air traffic control, is that it? Planning, organizing.
That's a good analogy, yeah.
Air traffic control, it covers planning, prioritizing, organizing, actually starting tasks.
Task initiation, yeah.
Exactly. And staying focused, managing time.
Yeah.
Basically, all the skills you need to get stuff done.
Okay. And for a lot of people, myself included sometimes, these don't just happen automatically. No. Definitely not. They can be a real struggle. So for this deep dive, we've looked at insights from researchers, productivity coaches, but also, really importantly, from people who live with these challenges day in, day out.
Especially folks with ADHD, right? You mentioned time blindness and task paralysis.
Yes, those are particularly common there, but honestly, anyone can struggle with aspects of executive function. So our goal today is really to dig into all that and pull out the most practical, actionable stuff.
Like, how do we actually bridge that gap, that intention-action gap we were talking about?
Precisely. And we're going to focus on how a tool most of us already use, Google Calendar, can become, well, a surprisingly powerful ally.
But not just on its own, right?
No, that's the key. It's Google Calendar plus specific strategies that are really designed to tackle those executive function hurdles head on.
Okay. So it's the combination, the tool and the technique.
Exactly. It's not just having the calendar, it's how you use it in a way that actually helps with why it's hard to get started or stay focused in the first place.
Got it. So let's dig into that why a bit more. What's really going on when those executive functions are maybe not working so smoothly?
Well, like you said, it's a whole set of skills. So when they're challenged, you see things like real difficulty getting started on task initiation.
Right. You just stare at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you look at a project with multiple steps and just freeze, feel completely overwhelmed. One source had this great analogy, the hydraulic hornet.
The hydraulic hornet.
It's like all the different steps and worries are buzzing around and pressing down on you all at once, just paralyzing you.
Whoa. Yeah, okay, I can picture that. That pressure, just squish.
Right. And then there's the whole time aspect, time blindness.
Okay, explain that one.
It means you might really, really underestimate how long something's going to take. Or you just lose track of time passing altogether. Could be when you're hyper-focused, or even when you're bored. Time just sort of slips away.
Okay. So underestimating or just losing it.
Yeah. Add to that getting easily distracted, finding it hard to stay focused, and, well, the old classic, procrastination.
Oh, yeah. Even on stuff you know is important, or maybe even stuff you want to do.
Exactly. So the core problem, as the sources really pointed out, isn't usually ignorance. It's not that you don't know what to do.
Or even how to plan it sometimes. You might have a great plan.
Right. You can have the list, the plan, everything. But making that jump from the idea, from the plan to actually doing it, that's the massive hurdle.
The execution part.
Yeah.
Okay. So how does Google Calendar help with that specific problem? Because usually I just use it for like meetings with other people.
And that's the kind of aha moment from the sources. We treat those meetings with others as, fixed points in our day, non-negotiable.
Right. You wouldn't just blow off a meeting usually.
Usually not. So the idea is to start treating your own important tasks with that same level of commitment. Google Calendar stops being just a record of appointments and becomes a tool for scheduling appointments with yourself.
Ah, okay. Scheduling appointments with myself. I like that framing. It makes it sound more official.
Exactly. It gives it weight.
So how do we actually do that, put it into practice?
Well, the main technique that kept coming up is called time blocking.
Time blocking.
So instead of having your tasks floating around on some separate to-do list, you actually allocate specific, dedicated blocks of time for them right there on your calendar grid.
Okay, I can see that. Putting it in a box on the calendar, it looks real. It gives it structure.
It does.
But why is that structure so helpful for those executive function things like the distraction or the overwhelm. What did the sources say?
Yeah, that's where it gets really interesting. First off, it massively helps cut down on distractions and that constant context switching, which just drains your mental energy.
Right, bouncing between emails,
Right.
messages, the actual task.
Exactly. If your calendar says 10 a.m., 11 a.m., work on report draft, you're kind of giving yourself permission to just do that. You're less likely to get pulled away. And one source mentioned it takes about, 23 minutes on average to fully regain focus after you've been distracted.
23 minutes just from one little interruption. Wow. Okay, that alone makes time blocking sound pretty good.
It's significant, right? Another huge thing is decision fatigue. That constant, okay, what should I work on now? That takes mental energy.
Yeah, just staring at the list can be tiring.
Totally. But with time blocking, you look at your calendar and it tells you, okay, next up is drafting that email. The decision's already made for you in that moment.
So the calendar is kind of acting like your external executive function. It's doing the prioritizing and deciding for you, in a way.
Precisely. And by giving a task a specific time slot, say 30 minutes or maybe 2 hours, you create this sort of internal deadline. It's not a real external deadline, maybe, but it creates a container.
Okay, like a boundary for the task.
Yes. And that contained time can provide just enough urgency to help push past procrastination and get you started. You're not just vaguely working on the report, you're working on the report from 10:00 to 11:00 a.m.
Giving it borders.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess seeing those blocks laid out visually helps you see if you're actually being realistic, right? Like, am I trying to cram 10 hours of work into a 4-hour window?
Exactly. It's that visual reality check. Helps combat that time blindness we talked about. You can actually see where your time is supposed to go.
Okay, this is making sense. So let's get practical. How do you physically do this in Google Calendar? Walk me through the clicks.
Sure. It's pretty straightforward. You just open up your Google Calendar, find an empty slot where you want to put something, or you can hit the Create button.
Okay.
And then you usually have a choice. You can create an event, which is like a fixed appointment block. That's really good for those dedicated focus periods, like deep work on presentation slides.
Right, like a meeting with yourself.
Exactly. Or you can create a task. Tasks are a bit different. They can have a due date, but they often stick around until you actually check them off as complete.
Okay. So events are for blocking time. Tasks are more like specific to-dos within the calendar. The sources mentioned both.
Yeah, both are useful ways to get things into the calendar view. Tasks are great for those discrete items you need to remember and mark done. Events are maybe better for scheduling chunks of work or routines. The main thing is getting it out of your head and onto the schedule.
And be specific with the title, right? Not just work.
Yes, definitely. The sources really emphasize that. Instead of work, make it draft intro paragraph for blog post or call plumber about leak. Much clearer. Then you just set the date and the time duration that's your block.
And GCal has features to help make this stick, presumably.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Reminders are key. You can set multiple notifications for both events and tasks. Those little pings can be crucial for just prompting you to start, especially if task initiation is hard.
Like a little nudge.
Exactly. And one user pointed out that using aggressive alarms, maybe on a smartwatch, works really well for them. It's harder to just swipe away or ignore than a phone notification sometimes.
Interesting. A smartwatch alarm is more demanding.
Yeah, and less likely to lead you down a rabbit hole, maybe. Your watch doesn't usually have TikTok on it.
Good point. What else?
Color coding. Big visual cue. You can assign different colors to different types of activities, work, personal, exercise, focus time, appointments.
So you can see the balance of your day at a glance?
Right, like, whoa, my whole day is red work blocks. Maybe I need a blue break block in there.
Turn your calendar into a beautiful, functional rainbow of productivity.
Something like that. You can also set recurring events. That's perfect for habits or regular tasks, like scheduling 15 minutes every morning to plan your day or your gym time.
Automate the scheduling of routines. Nice.
And there's the focus time feature in Google Calendar now. That can automatically decline meetings and signal to others you're busy, plus it can silence notifications. Really helps protect those blocks.
Okay, that's useful. Reinforces the boundary.
Yeah, and sharing your calendar, even selectively, can add a bit of that external accountability. If someone can see you've blocked out time, they might be less likely to interrupt.
True. And it's flexible, right? Life happens.
Totally. The drag and drop feature is great. If a meeting runs over or something urgent comes up, you can just drag your plan block to a different time. It doesn't derail the whole system. You just adjust.
Okay, so the tool itself is definitely powerful, lots of helpful features. But like we said at the start, just putting it on the calendar doesn't magically make it happen, that doing part.
Right.
So what are the strategies, the things the sources say you need to combine with the time blocking to actually follow through, to bridge that gap?
Right. Yeah, this is crucial because these strategies are really aimed at those specific executive function weak spots.
Right.
The first, maybe the most important one, start small and build the skill.
Meaning, don't try to time block your entire life from minute one.
Please don't. Yeah, that's just setting yourself up to feel overwhelmed and quit. Ease into it. Seriously, maybe just block one 30-minute task tomorrow morning. That's it.
Just dip your toe in.
Exactly. Or maybe just focus on blocking out your morning routine first. Get that down. You're building a new habit, a new skill. It takes practice. Like you wouldn't try to run a marathon by starting with 26 miles on day one, right?
No, you'd start with like a mile. Or maybe just putting your running shoes on.
Exactly. Which leads to another technique. Break down the time blocks themselves if needed, especially at first. If a 45-minute focus block feels like too much pressure.
Try something shorter.
Yeah, try like a mini Pomodoro cycle. Schedule just 5 minutes of work, then a 2-minute break. Repeat. Gradually increase the work interval. The goal here is just to initiate something. Anything.
Because that first step, the starting, is often the biggest hurdle with task initiation issues.
It really is. Some sources specifically mention that for people with ADHD, just getting started for even 5 minutes can sometimes create enough momentum or spark enough interest to keep them going much longer. It's about lowering that barrier to entry.
Making the first step ridiculously small. Like, okay, I will just open the document.
Yeah.
That's the task.
Yes, exactly. And that ties into another idea. Building self-trust. It sounds a bit abstract, maybe, but it's about making tiny, achievable promises to yourself all day long and then keeping them.
Like what?
Like really basic stuff first. Okay, when this podcast ad finishes, I will stand up. And then you do it. I'll pick up that pen now. Do it. It sounds silly, but each time you link your intention to an action, no matter how small, you build this little bit of evidence for yourself that you can follow through.
Okay, so you're building a track record of success with yourself, starting super small, before you even tackle the bigger block tasks.
Exactly. You're strengthening that intention action muscle. I will click create in Google Calendar. Click. Okay. Deposit made in the trust bank.
I like that. Trust bank. Okay, what else? Big tasks are still scary.
Right. Which brings us to breaking down overwhelming tasks. The technical term is task analysis. You take that big, scary goal like plan the family vacation or organize my finances, which feels like one giant paralyzing lump.
Yeah, the hydraulic hornet again.
Exactly. And you break it down into smaller, sequential, concrete steps.
So organize finances becomes step 1, gather all bank statements. Step 2, gather all credit card statements. Step 3, sort statements by month.
Yes, exactly like that. Those smaller, bite-sized pieces feel much less overwhelming. And crucially, you need to identify these smaller steps before you can effectively schedule time blocks for them in your calendar. You block time for gather bank statements, not just do finances.
Okay, break it down first, then block the pieces. Makes sense.
And related to this is a technique called chaining, once you have those steps identified.
Like links in a chain.
Yeah, chaining is about performing them in sequence, where finishing one step acts as the cue to immediately start the next one.
Ah, okay, so it helps with the transition between the small steps.
Exactly. It maintains momentum. So maybe your block for gather statements ends at 10:30 a.m. Your very next block, starting immediately at 10:30 a.m., is sort statements. Finishing the gathering step is the trigger to start sorting. You don't give yourself time to drift off in between.
Got it. Analyze the task into steps, schedule the steps, and then chain the execution together.
You got it. Next big strategy. Know your energy and schedule accordingly. This is huge. Pay attention to your own body clock. When do you naturally have the most focus and mental energy?
My peak productivity time.
Right. Schedule your most demanding, brain-heavy tasks for those peak times. Don't try to tackle complex problem solving when you're hitting your afternoon slump.
And save the easier stuff, like maybe answering routine emails or tidying up for those lower energy periods.
Exactly. Work with your natural rhythms, not against them. And just as important, schedule breaks. Seriously, put them in the calendar as actual blocks.
Treat breaks like tasks.
Yes. They're not optional luxuries. They're essential for performance and preventing burnout. Make them time-limited, though. Maybe a 10-minute break block. And maybe even plan what you'll do after the break to make restarting the next task easier.
Good point. Avoid the break turning into an hour of scrolling.
Right. Also, build in some buffer time. Flexible blocks for unexpected calls, emails, or just those little side quests that inevitably pop up during the day. Don't schedule every single minute rigidly.
Because life isn't perfectly predictable. Trying to force focus when you're drained or skipping breaks, that just leads to frustration and feeling like a failure, right?
Totally. It backfires and reinforces negative feelings. So work with your energy. Okay, next up, leverage accountability. For many people, especially with executive function challenges, external structure often works better than relying purely on internal willpower.
What does that look like in practice, telling someone your plan?
That can be part of it. Sharing your calendar, maybe just the busy times with a colleague or an accountability buddy, but also treating those scheduled blocks like real appointments you can't easily miss.
Like the meeting analogy again.
Exactly. And some sources mention using external tools. One user found FocusMate really effective. That's a service where you schedule a work session and you get paired with a stranger via video. You both just quietly work on your own stuff.
Oh, interesting. Just the presence of another person working makes you work.
Apparently, yes. For some people, treating that scheduled FocusMate session like a non-negotiable meeting with another human provides that external push they need to actually show up, start the task, and stay on it. It bypasses that internal, "Ugh, I don't feel like it" negotiation.
Fascinating. So external structure, whether it's sharing or co-working, or even just those aggressive smartwatch alarms we mentioned.
Right, whatever provides that effective external nudge. Okay, another key area, develop self-awareness and celebrate progress. This is about metacognition, basically, thinking about your own thinking.
How does that work?
There's a simple framework suggested. PATHIS. Predict, assess, compare. Before you start a scheduled block, take 10 seconds to predict. How long do you think this task will actually take? How focused do you predict you'll be?
Okay, make a guess. And after the block is done,
Assess. How long did it really take? How focused were you, honestly? What got in the way, if anything?
and then the C.
Compare. Compare your prediction to your assessment. Was your time estimate way off? Were you more or less focused than you thought? Why? This loop helps you learn your own patterns.
So it helps you get better at estimating time, which tackles the time blindness.
Exactly. And it helps you understand why some work blocks are productive and others aren't. Maybe you discover you're always distracted during that 2 p.m. block because that's when your energy dips. That's valuable information for future scheduling.
That's a really practical feedback loop, especially since that internal self-monitoring piece can be tricky with EF challenges. This gives you concrete data.
It does. And as you do this, as you gain awareness, it's so important to track your progress, even the tiny wins, and actually acknowledge them, celebrate them somehow.
Why is celebrating important?
Because it builds momentum. It counteracts those feelings of shame or failure that often come with procrastination or not meeting expectations. It reinforces the positive behavior and makes sure the goals you're blocking time for actually matter to you. That sense of ownership is a huge motivator.
Yeah, if you don't actually care about the task, it's way harder to make yourself start, no matter how well it's scheduled.
So true. Okay, final strategy area. Modify your environment. Basically, make your surroundings support your focus, not sabotage it.
Like tidy desk, tidy mind.
Pretty much. Reduce physical clutter. It reduces visual distraction. Even more importantly, reduce digital clutter. Turn off unnecessary notifications during your scheduled focus blocks. Close irrelevant tabs.
Create a focus-friendly bubble.
Yes. And use external aids if they help: a physical checklist next to your computer, a whiteboard with your top 3 tasks for the day, visual timers, whatever makes the plan more tangible and keeps you on track.
Okay, wow. So it's really this combination package, isn't it? You use the tool, Google Calendar, to create that external structure, the time blocks, the boundaries.
All right, the framework.
And then you layer on these strategies, starting small, breaking things down, matching tasks to energy, using accountability, building that self-awareness with PAC, setting up your environment.
Exactly. It's the tool providing the structure and the strategies providing the specific how-to for navigating those common EF pitfalls like initiation, distraction, and overwhelm.
Could you maybe walk us through an example, like take a real-world task and show how someone might apply a few of these strategies using Google Calendar?
Sure, let's think. Okay, how about something fairly complex but common, like planning a big road trip? That involves research, booking things, budgeting, maybe calculating fuel costs. Lots of steps, definitely potential for that hydraulic hornet feeling.
Oh, yeah. Total overwhelm potential there.
Right. So instead of just having a vague planned road trip on your to-do list forever, you'd start with task analysis.
Break it down.
Yep, break it down. Research potential destinations, compare hotel Airbnb prices, create budget spreadsheet, estimate gas costs, book accommodations, outline daily itinerary, make packing list, whatever the key steps are for you.
Okay. Much more manageable little pieces.
Then you look at your Google Calendar and think about your energy. Maybe Tuesday morning from 9 to 10 a.m. is your absolute peak focus time.
Prime time.
So you schedule a 60-minute block then. You label it specifically, focus time, research destinations, road trip. You set a reminder for 8:55 a.m. to nudge you to wrap up whatever you're doing and get ready.
Good initiation trigger.
Exactly. When 9 a.m. hits, you maybe turn on GCal's focus time feature to mute notifications. You close other tabs, and you work only on researching destinations for that hour. Maybe you use Pomodoro within the block, 25 minutes research, 5 minutes stretch break, repeat.
Okay. Applying multiple strategies within that one block.
Right. And you might color code all your road trip planning blocks bright green so you can see them easily. Then you'd schedule other blocks for the other steps, maybe a 30-minute block later for create budget spreadsheet, another for calculate fuel costs.
And maybe before scheduling any of those, you do a quick predict step. How long do I think calculate fuel costs will really take me?
Excellent. Yes, incorporating the Pacto framework. For the budget part, you schedule the block, and maybe within the description, you list the sub-steps. Or you use GCal tasks linked to that time for calculate estimated gas or list potential food costs. You're using practical math skills within that dedicated time.
And maybe you share just those green road trip blocks with your travel partner for accountability.
Perfect example of leveraging accountability. See how it all layers together. Task analysis, time blocking, specific labeling, reminders for initiation, focus time features, energy awareness and scheduling, pack for self-awareness, maybe accountability sharing.
Yeah, that paints a really clear picture. It's not just one thing. It's using the system. And this applies to smaller stuff too, right? Like the example of teaching someone with severe EF challenges to use a call light, that's task analysis and chaining, with practice sessions blocked in the calendar.
Absolutely. The core principles scale. Or for everyday practical life, like meal prepping. You break it down, plan meals, make grocery lists, go shopping, wash and chop veggies. Then you block time for each step. Maybe use GCal tasks for the grocery list items. Set a reminder for your shopping block.
So it works for big projects, daily chores, work tasks, even habits, like scheduling exercise or, as one source mentioned, using an app that acts like a reminder system for basic needs,
Yeah.
like drinking water that's essentially time blocking a reminder.
Exactly. It's taking any action you want or need to take, breaking it down if necessary, estimating the time realistically, and learning to get better at that estimate, and then deliberately carving out space for it in your schedule, using these techniques to help you actually follow through.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. That feeling of being overwhelmed, struggling to start, getting easily derailed, it's often tied to these executive function challenges.
Right. The planning, initiating, focusing skills.
And while that can be super frustrating, the encouraging thing from these sources is that using a tool like Google Calendar, specifically for time blocking, making those appointments with yourself, creates vital external structure.
Structure that your internal executive functions might struggle to provide consistently.
And then you combine that structure with these specific strategies we've talked about, starting really small, breaking tasks down, scheduling with your energy flow, using accountability partners or tools, building self-awareness through that predict, assess, compare cycle, and shaping your environment.
When you combine the tool and those techniques, you're directly tackling those EF hurdles. You're building your capacity to actually initiate, focus, and complete the things that are important to you.
And it's not about suddenly becoming perfectly productive overnight, right? It's a process.
Definitely a process. Building skills, finding what combination works for you, being flexible, and importantly, being kind to yourself along the way. It's about progress, not rigid perfection.
So maybe think about your Google Calendar differently. Not just as that place where meetings live, but as like a dynamic canvas, a place where you intentionally design your day block by block, choosing where your focus and your energy will actually go.
I like that. A dynamic canvas.
What might happen if you decided to approach just one important task that way today, block it out, use one or two of these strategies, and just see.